2018, and to discuss broader education issues, I'm joined in studio by Xolani Fakude. He's a Secretariat officer at the South African Democratic Teachers Union, also known as SADTU. Thanks very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Norma.
So just tell us what your reaction has been to that matric result of 78.2%. That's the national result, which is a 3.1% percentage point increase on last year.
Well, we welcome the results. You would recall, Nobu, that over the past few years, our peak as a country was in 2013 at 78.2. So we've reached that once again. We're getting closer and closer to that 80%. But now what excites us, as SADTU in particular, is the fact that we are seeing a significant improvement when it comes to the quintile 1 to 3 schools, which is what we would call the less affluent schools. These are the rural schools, these are the township schools, and this is where by and large SADTU members are. So it excites us to see that we are producing over 84,000 bachelor passes just between quintile 1 and 3 only. So it really excites us. We welcome the results. Of course, there are some issues we could improve. There's always space for improvement, but we welcome the results, and we're saying that well done to the teachers and the learners in particular. Indeed,
indeed. And then, of course, there is that problem that, of course, about 500,000 learners sat for matric, and then, of course, 400,000 passed. But at the beginning of their education, when they started grade 1, there was over 1 million of them. Yeah. So, the question is raised as to what happened to those 500,000 learners. From your perspective as SADTU, interacting with the education system and so on, why are there those casualties? Why are people not able to see through from year 1 to year 18?
Well, there are two issues directly attached to that. Our completion rate as a country has been improving. We're at 55%, right? That's the completion rate. But that is not necessarily what should bring us joy per se, because then you ask yourself what is happening to the rest. Now, the fact of the matter is that education is by all means a societal issue. It's one issue that cannot be left to just a teacher and a learner in a classroom situation. So we're always calling for increased parental involvement. Those are some of the interventions that we see working in the best education systems in the world. But again, we are saying that we need to have a greater focus at the lower levels, which is the ECD phase, which is the foundation phase as well. In fact, the best of the crop should be at those levels, the foundation, ECD as well. And the reason we say that is that we feel as a union that somehow we come up with very late interventions. We come up with the interventions grade 11, grade 12. That is when we get consent about what is happening, what is not happening. But the fact of the matter is that if you're going to build a learner who is going to go into a smooth transition toward the 12-year phase, it starts at the very, very early level, which is the ECD, which is the foundation phase. That is why, as SADTU, for instance, we are calling for greater formalization of the ECD subsector, because we think that is where we could crack it and start retaining more learners within the system.
Xolani, I want us to just have a look at this graphic. It pretty much describes what I laid out to you in terms of the stats. So the year of 2018, in grade 1, there were over 1 million of them. And then you get 51% of learners sitting the matric exam. That is full-time learners, and then 400,000 of them, that is 40% of them, passing matric, and only 17% getting a bachelor's pass. Now, the quality of the matric, we get excited that people have passed, but people can pass with 30 and 40%. How satisfactory is that, given that we need to compete in the global environment with the likes of South Korea, the UK, Europe, and other places? Is that really satisfactory? And what are we telling our children if they set their bar at 30 to 40%?
Well, before this particular show, I was listening to the MEC of Gauteng, Mr. MEC Panyazali Sufi, who was explaining that in actual fact, when we speak of those who would have passed between 30 and 40%, it's very, very minimal. It's actually minute. It's insignificant in scientific terms. But nonetheless, that does not necessarily take away what we see. The picture that is being painted here is a picture of a social catastrophe, as a matter of fact. Because when you look at 1 million to that 400,000 over there, it tells you that we are still struggling to somehow retain the students or the learners within the system. Now we know that most of the dropouts happen between the grade 10, the grade 11 around that particular period. But now that tells you that what is required, therefore, is greater involvement of all the stakeholders that are involved within the particular system, which is the education system. By that I mean, so we speak of parents. We speak of social psychosocial support as well. We speak of many other interventions that should be coming in at around that phase. But the focus must always, the only way in which we could manage that is if we focus as well on the ECD and the foundation phases, and that's our firm position on it. That is the only way in which we could get to that.
Xolani, I have to ask you this. I'm worried about time, but obviously one of the issues that keeps on recurring, you do have your critics as SADTU, that sometimes SADTU is part of the problem in the education system, that many of your members choose to come and go to work as they please, lack of consistency, protest action every now and again, a go slow sort of attitude, which affects the learners, and it's not their fault and so on. So what's your view on that?
Well, nothing could be further from the truth. A fact is that we have not had any industrial action within the sector over the past 8 years. Now that is a reality, and the best performing education systems in the world have gotten almost 100% unionization. Look at the Scandinavian countries, for instance. So unions can never be a problem. SADTU can never be a problem. As a matter of fact, like I said to you, that the biggest improvement that we see consistent over the past 5 years is between quintile 1 and quintile 3, which is where SADTU members are. That is where we are teaching. And I mean, the great sacrifices that we make as teachers, that we make as SADTU members. I speak, for instance, of the Vembe district, the Vuwani area, whereby teachers have had to be teaching their learners for almost 7 days a week, literally sleeping in the classrooms. And now that tells you the amount of commitment and selflessness that we put forward as a union. Now, out of every 3 teachers, 2 of them will be SADTU members. Now, when we celebrate a system that improves, it means that it is SADTU members by and large who are doing that. So we're part of the solution, not the problem.
Okay, fair enough. And then quickly, for 2019, what is it that SADTU would be wanting? We know that the wage negotiations were done and dusted last year for the next 3 years, so money can't be the conversation at the moment until the next couple of years. But in terms of support and intervention for this year, what is it that you'd be hoping both government and maybe perhaps parents would be doing to enable you to do your jobs better?
Well, yes, you are correct. Wage negotiations are over, but the department knows that we still have got a 0.3% shortfall that still needs to be paid to the teachers, by the way, and we will continue to fight for that. And I want to assure all our members that we will continue to fight for that. What we need consistently is that there needs to be consistent, professional, continuous teacher development. That is very, very important for us. That is one of the main things whereby we can start to crack at some of the deficiencies that we see within the system. And of course, infrastructure development, education infrastructure. We need to see more infrastructure being put in because education is an investment. It's an investment for the country. So we need to see that coming through into the system. And again, of course, parental involvement. We can never overemphasize the importance that element has within the system. We can only improve beyond this where we are right now if only we can have all the stakeholders within the education system playing their role. Then we should be on the good path. Indeed.
We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Xolani, for your time. That was Xolani Fakude. He's the Secretariat Officer at SADTU. Over to you, Arabile.
Thank you, Nompo. Well, the Mpumalanga Education Department is forging ahead with its program to fund people living with disabilities who want to further their studies. Now, Judas Mudala, who is visually impaired, has graduated with flying colors from the University of the Free State, and he's ready to start teaching.
Patience